Right, we're just past half past, so I think we'll get stuck in. So, yeah, well, thank you everybody. Welcome to the Terrafarmer Biologicals Project webinar. Appreciate you all joining. There seems to be a good number of you here. I've just put a form in the chat box, which is a form sort of on the back of this for joining the webinar. We're offering a sort of a free follow-up farm visit to kind of discuss what we're going to have a chat about today in a bit more detail. So if you want to make the most of that, if you can fill that form in, it's basic farm details, a bit of a postcode, and a number to contact you, so we can organise a visit. So that's in the chat. But if there's any issues, we can follow up and make sure you get hold of that to organise a visit. So yeah, well, thank you for your time this evening. So we're going to kick off. I'll just have a quick overview of the trials that we're running in Wales, and then I'll hand over to the producers that are involved in the trials to give a real brief overview of their product, what it is, what it does, and maybe some practical tips on how to get the best out of it. Feel free to ask questions as we go. Either unmute yourself and ask it, put questions in the chat or the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on that and sort of fire questions at the presenters as we go. And likewise, ask me questions as well. So we'll get into it. So that's the link for the free farm visit after this webinar, but I've put that in the chat, so I can circulate this presentation. So the trial that we're running is basically an Innovate UK project that is running from April to December this year, fully funded through the government through Innovate, which is a really exciting thing to be involved in. And essentially, it's 9 months across 5 farms in Wales. Basically look at the biologicals market. It's quite a new growth area. There's a lot of talk around these sorts of products, but there's a bit of limited data around them. So what we wanted to do is take some of the sort of the leading products in the biologicals market, have a real look at what they do, how they work, and put some numbers to what they're actually bringing to the party in terms of sort of soil health, soil biology, leaf tissue samples, and forage samples. So we've looked at detailed Solvita analysis. So that's a really detailed soil test to look at your sort of key macro and micronutrients, as well as things like micro biomasses, potentially mineralizable nitrogens, to get a real good deep dive into the soil. Part of that is microbial biomass, leaf tissue, forage, and biomass yield data, which we've converted into dry matter yield. So a real big data set to put some numbers to these products. This is sort of how the trial is laid out. It's basically 8 plots across each farm, with each yellow point being a sample point. So we've got 3 sample points per plot, and each of those sample points we're taking soil, leaf, and forage, as well as the biomass data from. So it's quite a big data set. They're around, generally most farms are 20-meter plots by about 120 meters, depending on field size. So good sized plots to have a look at. And we're using a tow and fert machine to apply the product, which is a machine that's really targeted for foliar nutrition and biological products, which spreads to about 9 to 9.5 meter width. So essentially, it's a up and a down with the machine to spread the products, to then look at the data through the growing season. So here are the products, and this is what we'll hear about this evening. So we'll hear from David Maxwell about Terrafed, Grant from Seed Soil, Sam from Soil Point, Henry from BioCat, Kyla from Crofters, and Romney from Silgan Bio. So we'll hear a brief overview, a quick sort of 5 to 10 minute overview of their products, ask questions, understand what they do, and then we can have a look at the trials data. So I guess just to frame the discussion is, biological products won't solve fundamental soil issues or soil function issues. The real key thing is you've got to get the fundamentals of your soil right first. So what I mean by that is physics and chemistry. So if you've got a heavily compacted soil that's waterlogged and anaerobic, however good any of these biological products are, it's not going to solve that issue. So start with that, have a look at what's going on physically in your soil, deal with that first. And if that's a cultivation, a cover crop, whatever's needed, that's where to start. The next step then I believe is to look at the chemistry. So look at the mineral balances, calcium to magnesium ratios, look at your nutrition balance to make sure that's all nicely in balance to help the biologicals work the best and give them the best opportunity to really give you some soil health gains and benefits. So I think that's important to note, and then understanding what each product does within that soil, because they all do act slightly differently. They have different strengths and weaknesses. So you almost need to think of them as you would like a fungicide mode of action or a herbicide. They do very different things within the soil. So hopefully this evening, what you can understand is what they do, what they're trying to achieve. So you can go, actually, okay, I need to build a bit more fungal biomass in my soil, so I need this product, or I want to build overall microbial biomass, so this mixture will work. So I think that's quite important to understand. And that's kind of underpins what we do at Terrafarmer, really, is that sort of detailed soil analysis and looking at the soil from a sort of a whole farm perspective. So that's just setting the scene quickly, kind of what we're doing, why we're doing it. So now it's a chance to hear from the producers of the products. So we'll hand over to David Maxwell from QLF. So David, if you tell me to move on when you're ready and unmute yourself, that will be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. I better unmute myself. Right. Hello, I'm David Maxwell. I'm the sales director for QLF Agronomy. We've been producing the Boost TerraFed products for probably about 16 years now. It's all coming from the US. So yeah, we're putting it onto a good few million of acres now these days across the globe fundamentally. So it'll be going in the US. Europe, and South America as well these days, so it's exciting times. So I'll crack on with the next slide if that's all right. So first and foremost, I'll just talk about carbon briefly. Carbon is the keystone for all physical and chemical and biological processes. And we're now, because of regen, probably only now starting to get our heads around it. It's such an important element and involved in many systems and photosynthesis, respiration, etc., building organic matter. And the plant produces that carbon itself through photosynthesis. It produces a C6 carbon sugar. And it stores that within the plant, and it also exudes it out of the plant to feed soil biology. Have the next slide, thank you. Next slide, that's it. So what we are trying to do here is take advantage of this symbiotic relationship. So a plant produces sugars through photosynthesis, and it will exudate, to give you an idea, somewhere between 30 and 50% of the sugars that it produces through photosynthesis out into the soil. So considering photosynthesis is one of the primary actions within a plant, for it to take the product from that and actually exudate it into the soil, it's not doing that just for giggles. It's doing that for a reason, and the reason it's doing that is to try and encourage the soil biology around its roots as much as it possibly can. So why is it doing that? Well, it's trying to do that so that these bugs and microbes, etc., will make available nutrition that is already in the soil, and help the plant grow healthily, strongly, etc. So what we're fundamentally trying to do here is help the young, in the case of this picture, in the case of the next slide, it's all about the young plant. What we're trying to do there is just take the pressure off that plant, so that that young seedling, so that it gets all the nutrition it possibly can, so it gets off to the best start in life. Further down the growing cycle, there's other advantages for applying sugars, but fundamentally, the TerraFed product is all about producing giving the soil biology a boost of sugar, and therefore increase the numbers. And we expect to roughly double the bacterial numbers. Next slide, please. Sorry. So there's three main times a year to use it, this product. So if we look at the initial stages, which is drilling, or sorry, well, we're trying to improve the establishment of the crop. So what is Terrafed? Fundamentally, it's cane molasses. It's a fantastic energy source. You're probably getting about 0.4 of a kilogram of sugar per liter as you apply it. It's low in pH. And which will improve nutrient availability. We also add some fermented yeast extracts because it's not just all about bacteria, it's about fungi as well. And so that will help improve that along as well. But we're also got other growth promoting compounds that are found naturally within the cane sugar, humates, phenols, bioflavonoids. There'll be amino acids in there and all sorts. So what do we sort of expect from a customer sort of using our product? We're expecting to put on between 10 and 20 litres per trip. When you're looking at fertilizers, and we'll look at that later on, you're looking at about 10 to 20% inclusion levels. And as an annual, I'd be looking to put on about 60 litres a hectare is roughly what I'm expecting on cereal croppings, probably slightly different from a grassland point of view. It'll be slightly underneath that. So if we go to the next slide, we'll just briefly talk about it, the benefits of using it at planting. So what we're trying to do here, as I've always said, increase the bacterial numbers, which will make available more of that residual fertilizer that is in the soil. So that from the organic matter and such like. But also applied nutrition, and that doesn't mean it has to come from a bag or anything like that. That could be farmyard manures, etc., digestates. So it will help to break that down and make that available to the plant. It also allows the plants to hold on to its own sugars. If we're providing it with some sugars, it means that the plant isn't having to exude as much, and therefore we should see increases in Brix levels. As I mentioned earlier, the bacteria, we normally double the amount of bacteria in the soil, but another key one is bacteria is 50% protein. So, and protein is just a measurement of nitrogen. So you're actually helping to generate your own nitrogen as well. The reason why we see an increase in the rooting is due to the rhizophagy cycle. We can go into more details or leave that to Will to discuss, but that helps fundamentally in pushing roots further down through the soil profile, and therefore hopefully will help from any concern, drought conditions, etc. It'll help as far as that. We also have a benefit is that as it punctures through these leaflets, roots go through the soil. We actually produce mucilage, which is a product which is really good at holding on to water. So, and the other thing to mention is at planting is even if you've got a late planting scenario and you haven't put any Terrafed or boost onto the crop, putting on some boost will give it a bit of an energy kick and get it moving again. So anything that's been a bit stressed or late planted, etc., it's an ideal product for that. Can I have the next slide, please, Will? So the other time to put it on or use the Terrafed product is in the springtime, so with spring fertilizer. So this is where I feel you get the bigger bang for the buck. Certainly for the conventional guys, this is where they'll see the benefits of this. It can, as I said, mentioned earlier, it can be used in the organic side of things because it will help to incorporate farmyard manure, digestate slurries of this world as well. But as we know, the nitrogen cycle is inherently leaky, and we have issues with leaching and volatilization. Only about 30 to 40% of spring nitrogen is actually taken up by the crop, and the rest of it is lost to a lesser or greater extent. But if we're able to feed up that soil biology, we can capture more of that in, and so we end up actually moving more of that nitrogen out of what we call the leaky nitrogen cycle into the more stable carbon cycle. So and that will stay within the soil more readily, and it's less prone to leaching and volatilization, etc. It sits in the soil and it's ready for you later on. So that's why we're able to make some quite dramatic cuts in the amount of fertilizer being applied, is because you're just increasing that from 30-40% of spring N been taken up by the crop. You're lifting that up to 50-60s and stuff like that. So that's where you're getting it from. Another big piece around for when you're applying it with using it alongside liquid fertilizer, it reduces scorch. And I don't know if any people might have experience of that, putting on liquid fertilizers and seeing some scorch. But by putting some boost in there, you remove the scorch challenges that you have with that. Next slide, if that's all right. So we can also use it from a foliar point of view. So this is, again, if you're looking at it from a nitrogen point of view, but the same is applied from other foliar nutrition that you may wish to apply. You can it helps to collate any of that foliar nutrition. It will improve the uptake because it's acidic and there's a little bit on the sticky side. It also helps to metabolize protein. And the reason why that happens is that to move urea through to amino acid through to the likes of proteins, the plant needs carbon to convert urea through into amino acids. So with us supplying the carbon in the form of sugars, the plant doesn't have to break down its own source of sugar, and it can use our source instead. And therefore, it doesn't have a drop in what we call energy deficit. But this is the main reason why we see a reduction in scorch when I mentioned in the spring fertilizer, is because ureas of this world will scorch on their own. But if you put that carbon element, you're moving it through to amino acid very quickly. And amino acids don't scorch fundamentally. So that is the reason and rationale in that. So we can, as I said, by using foliar fertilizer with or without Terrafed in it, it helps it's a massive piece around improving soils, because it helps to reduce the overall amount of nitrogen you're applying to the soil, and you will get the benefits of that going forward. Also, boosted and Terrafed are a little bit on the heavier side, and because of that, we've seen reductions in drift, and then, as I mentioned earlier, that reduction in the growing plant. So I think that is. I've rattled through that as quickly as I can. Will, I'm conscious you've got a few people to get through.
Thank you, David. That was spot on. Any questions? I've not seen any come through the chat. If anyone wants to unmute themselves, they can. If not, we'll press on. Grant. Oh, Darren. Sorry, you've got a question, Darren. Fire away.
Yeah, just a quick one. David, we run one of the trial sites here on our farm, and had a lot of success with the Terrafed. But you also do a product called Boost, which is the non-organic version, and I'm wondering how the products differ and which one we should be doing as a conventional farmer.
As a conventional farmer, you can get away with the Boost. It's got a very small amount of nitrogen in there. It's got a bit of urea and ammonium nitrate in there. Tongue in cheek, I'm saying this to you, but I think we ended up putting a bit of urea and ammonium nitrate into the product in the States in the early days, just so that we had an NPKS reading. Because all the way back then, when they were trying to push these sorts of products, the people were probably looking at it, but it doesn't have anything in it. It would, if you look at the Terrafed, it's 00121 or something like that. There's nothing in it. So it was more of a difficult thing for the FERT guys to sell. The difference between the two is marginal, to be brutally honest. The great advantage about the Terrafed product over the Boost one is that the fact that you can use that if you're in a nitrogen vulnerable zone, etc., you can use that very late on because it doesn't have any nitrogen in it. It will work like nitrogen, but it doesn't mean that it's not a nitrogen product. So if I was putting stuff, if I was going to use I had the option of the two products at planting, I would probably use Boost. If I was using it alongside liquid fertilizer, I would buy Terrafed, because you're getting all your it's cheaper to buy your urea in a 27-ton tank than it is in an IBC. And then when it goes on to the foliar nutrition, if you're adding it to the likes of urea, you've got your own urea or whatever, I would go with the Terrafed. If you're not putting nitrogen on, the Boost is a better product, and just to get that little bit of nitrogen that's what I would be thinking about. But honestly, these are marginal gains.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, David. No, that's perfect. And also the urea in the Boost will help drive root growth as well at planting, because ammonium nitrate generally is a bit more top growth, and urea drives a bit more root growth. So early in the season, that urea is really helpful. That little bit of urea in the Boost for getting those roots established, as we know, are vital to nutrient access and that sort of stuff. Brilliant, thank you. Right, Grant, I'll pass over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Will. Grant James, Seed to Soil. Seed to Soil, what is seed to soil and where does it come from? Let's just start from, it's a fish hydrolysate. It's a byproduct from the fish industry. And the company that own the brand are called Pelagia. They're a Norwegian company, and they process over 13 million tons of fish a year. So I've got lots of this to sell if you want some. Right, where we got to? Let's have a look. So it's no, back one, please. Go back one. Comprising of natural organic nitrogen, 5%, minerals, trace elements, amino acids, 30% amino acids. It's got a high fat content, and it basically is promoting the growth of the fungi, the bacteria, and the worms. So it works hand in hand with a lot of things that are also being used in these presentations and what Terrafarmer are doing on farm. Next slide, please, Will. Go into a little bit more detail. What we do is all the middles are moved out. We tend to use salmon more than anything else from the salmon farms and the fish farms in the North Atlantic. We use the frames, so they go off for processing. They go to Marks and Spencer's and all the different places, Waitrose, Tesco's, everywhere. So we get the frames, and then we basically put a little bit of formic acid in to pickle it, for want of a better word. We heat it to get rid of a bit of bacteria. We put a bit of a marker in. It's processed in Bressay in Shetland, filtered down to 50 microns, and it arrives in Grimsby for packaging and delivery. That's fully traceable with organic OF&G status. Next one, please. That's just a typical example of the amino acid levels that are in there. So it's got a very high level of amino acids, and probably the right ones for the right reasons. Next slide, please, Will. But it's also got trace elements in there. It's got fatty acid content, dry matter content is about 40 to 45 with a pH of 4. Once you mix it with 100 to 200 litres per hectare of water, it mixes in the tank with most things. We've got a very comprehensive compatibility list on the website, which is www.seedtosoil.co.uk. So there's an awful lot of information on that website about what you can mix it with. The interesting thing is it has got 5% organic nitrogen. Leave it on that one, Will, please. Yeah, go on, flick it back again. Yeah, hit the button again, Will. So it's suitable in all situations, but again, it's something that Will mentioned at the beginning was, you've got to get the basics right, the calcium magnesium ratios. You've got to look at maybe moving minimal soil disturbance, those sort of things, cover crops. You've got to look at all these things. This isn't the silver bullet by any means, but it's feeding the underground livestock. It's feeding the bugs of food, and it's giving them energy. And by giving them energy, increases the bacteria, increases the fungicide, the fungi, and hey presto, you're getting a release of nutrients back into the crop in the soil. We're doing a lot of product development. We're working with NIAB and working with Nottingham University, looking at what Seed to Soil brings to the table. We're looking at reduced rates on nitrogen for next year, 2026, seeing what we can do with that. We're looking at increasing fungi by 15 to 20%. And so there's a lot of testing going on at the moment. We're only in our 4th year. We are the only producers of fish hydrolysate in Europe. There is some in America, there is some in New Zealand, but there's none in Europe. And we have 27 factories. And as I said, a lot of fish to process. Next slide, please. Those are the sort of underground livestock and the bugs we're feeding, and there's an awful lot of them per metre squared. The biggest one probably is the bacteria and the fungi, where you've got over 11 trillion insects, well, fungi and bacteria per square metre. And protozoas are an important one, nematodes are important, and so right the way up to the earthworms. So there's an awful lot going on underground, under your feet, that you don't know about or you don't see. Next slide, please. We've also been doing some work which is interesting based on what farmers have noticed. We've noticed that aphids and cabbage stem flea beetle don't like Seed to Soil. There's a varying number of reasons why. Some say it could be they just don't like the smell, but it could be other reasons as well, which we are investigating. But we did have some very interesting facts in 2024 from NIAB, which showed we did reduce cabbage stem flea beetle with 2 sprays at 90% on day 12. So we're still looking at that. We're still considering that. We're still doing experiments on that. So it's watch this space with that one. Next slide, please. Timing, springtime, early as possible in the spring on the cereal crops. Basically, spring crops go in pre or post, and then a little follow-up at 5 to 10 litres at stem extension. And then you've got Seed to Soil comes in an IBC, but it also comes in 22-litre containers. Next slide. Winter, 10 litres per hectare in the autumn, 5 and 5 early on in the spring, except for oilseed rape, where it's 10 litres pre-M as soon after the drilling as possible, followed with 5 litres before stem elongation. Next one, please. Just a little bit of maths I did. It is a good starter for bug food. We are getting good reports, and farmers are saying that they're seeing the differences and they're using it. It's a product you want to be using over a period of time. You're not really going to see a big difference in the first year. Having said that, I have spoken to farmers who've had differences in the first year. It's a highly digestible food for the bugs, and the nitrogen, the organic nitrogen in there is worth quite a bit, really, especially when you base urea at £400 a tonne. So for £2.22 per acre, I'm flipping around in acres and hectares here, but basically it's a good energy source for feeding the underground livestock, as long as you've got low soil disturbance, as long as you've got cover crops, as long as your magnesium to calcium ratios are right. Next slide, please. Little one there for you to read from a farmer. Colin Chappell. He's a very good farmer who's been using it now for 3 years. We've only had it in the marketplace for 4 years, and we're still pushing the ball up the hill, but it's going very well. It's gone very well this year. And then, so basically, you've got your amino acids, your trace elements, you've got your NP and K, and that's basically increasing your active soil pyramid per metre squared. Next slide, please, Will. I don't know where soil point came from, but
that's all I've got, I think, for you, Grant.
Is that all you've got? Okay,
yeah.
Right. I think we're about there.
Okay.
Just to emphasise that the chemistry, the biological side of it, getting the soil right in the first place is going to all move in the right direction, and Seed to Soil will help feed those bugs. Terrafarmer and I have been talking about, with all what's going on in the webinars and the meetings last week, we're running a discount for a while, 10% discount from 970 on farm down to 873. So if you do feel like you want to try an IBC of Cedar Soil, please give Will or Tom or any of the team, Hugo, a ring, and we'll sort it out and we'll get it delivered to you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Grant. That was a good overview. Any questions? No, I think we're all good to carry on. I'll pass over to Sam Worthy from Soil Point. Sam.
Thanks very much for that, Will. Yes, Sam Worthy from Soil Point. That is, if you see something too good to be true, that is our AI generated farmer there with AI generated wheat who jumped the gun. So apologies for that. If you could go on to the next slide, please. But in all seriousness, we understand some of the issues that are facing farmers at the moment. We understand that margins are under pressure. You have your rising costs, very unpredictable weather, particularly in the UK, and an even worse set of policies with changing subsidies and shifting SFI rules. So we get it's tricky. And the whole point of us being around is to give you something real, practical, that can help ease some of those pains by cutting input costs and building long-term soil resilience. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So our soil booster is a natural humic-based soil conditioner, which is certified for organic and conventional farming. The key aspect of it is that it really helps to unlock the existing nutrients that are already in your soil. So instead of paying for extra bags of inputs, it's using what's already there. And as a secondary to that, it also builds soil structure, helps with water retention, root development, and microbial activity. There's a number of quotes that I've put into the presentation from Dr. Robert Petty at Texas University, a soil scientist who waxes lyrical about humates. Very happy to share that research with anyone if they are interested. But he talks about how they help to produce healthier, high yields and a better nutritional quality. If you could go on to the next slide, please. Well, so in layman's terms, the humic acid, I like to think of it as a soil sponge. So that's the part that's really helping to improve the soil structure, the water retention, and the nutrient holding capacity to a state where it can actually hold 7x its volume in water, which is more than clay. And on the other side of things, the fulvic acid acts as a nutrient courier. So it's all about transporting minerals into the plant as quickly as possible. Thank you. On to the next one, please. So you may have come across other types of humates in the past or humic products. The key differentiator for Soil Point, it's all about really our purity of product. So some of the other products that you might have seen in the past typically have sort of a 20 to 30% potency of humic and fulvic acid, whereas we're up that much higher, sort of 70 plus. The other a good part of what we do is the compatibility. So we work with all of your existing farming kit, and you can use the product at planting and alongside other applications. And we have it in 3 formats. So your liquid, your powder, and your pellets. The other thing to say is that we are working with some of the big players in the market. We're not flashing the pan. It's not, snake oil. As you can see, we're working with Safetra and Cornish Mutuals are some of the big players in the market. You go on to the next one, please, Will. So what does it mean as a snapshot for your farm? It's all about reducing chemical inputs. We believe up to 50% less inputs are needed over time. And obviously that is with direct cost savings. It's all about boosting that uptake of N, P, and K and cutting your fertilizer needs. The other piece is obviously increasing or at the least maintaining your yields. Obviously, this is subject to crop and soil type, and the long-term benefit is that you are building soil structure, building resilience, building water retention, and really improving that long-term soil health. And you can see our man Petty there is talking about roots treated with humates average around 20 to 50% heavier than untreated roots. If you go on to the next one, please. So in summary, whoops, something has happened a bit with my presentation, apologies. It's all about reducing your fertilizer bill, increasing / maintaining your yield, and improving your soil health. We do have a few other slides at the back there. Will, I don't know if you can nudge down a couple. Obviously, sorry, I've waxed. It's a bit of an echo there. Wax lyrical about the science and Mr. Petty, but we actually have one of our farmers on the line here, Dan Larn, and we've actually got a case study, which Dan, I don't know if you had time or the opportunity to go through. I think it's a couple down from there. Will, if you could. There you go. Oh.
The right one, Sam?
Yeah,
yeah, that's it. Thanks, Dan. I don't know if you wanted to.
I can very quickly and jump in and do that. I don't know how you're doing for time. So essentially, we've trialed SoilPoint now in a couple of different modes and formats for the last couple of years. We have consistently seen a 30% bump in covers, in dry matter, with a sort of a organic sort of pasture-fed Angus herd. And we've gone from doing, on the silage fields, we've gone from doing, this year we've gone from doing 3 cuts of 6 bales an acre on the control, to getting up to 9 bales an acre. And that's with, through that growing season, absolutely nothing going on, just a little bit of well-rotted farmyard manure in sort of November of last year. So no additional nitrogen, comfortably covered, sort of like 30% yield bump across the board. Some of the trial plots were seeing, some huge increases. But yeah, I'm telling everybody at the moment that it's a comfortable 30 to 35% uplift in production, and it's using very little product, and trying to cut back as much as possible on any supplemental nitrogen or anything that anyone's using. Again, we've used absolutely none on ours, other than that manure that goes on in the end of the year, and it's produced some absolutely fantastic results.
Great, thanks, Dan. Any more on that, or should we?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I forgot about this. So
we got 1 minute. No pressure.
1 minute, perfect. That's all I need. So when we did our first trial with SoilPoint, we actually applied it quite close to the end of the year, end of the sort of grazing season, and we got an extra sort of 2 weeks of good grass growth. This year, we've seen that at the beginning of the year as well. So the trial plots got into the sort of the growth phase a little bit earlier. We think it should be possible to sort of extend by a month your sort of grazing season, maybe a little bit more, if you kind of want to really push it. But we were comfortable getting a month of extra grazing out of ours, which, as you can see there, can be worth quite a bit. Animals seem to have quite a preference there for browsing amongst this treated area. So yeah, it's been a real transformative product for us. It's done a really good job.
Apologies, I think there's some formatting issues there.
Yeah, I think we can probably kind of skip through these bits for time there.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're all good on that. Well, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, chaps. Very good.
Very good.
Very good.
Very good.
Sorry, Henry, I was going to mute you temporarily. Any questions for the chaps there at Soil Point? Good. Right. Henry, we will pass over to you.
Yeah, hi guys. David Laurie, who's been is our technical director. He is literally just running out of a meeting to get on this link. So I don't know if we can skip to the next ones, Will, if that's all possible, and then come back to us. I could
no worries.
I could do it, but it probably wouldn't do it justice. So
no problem. Let me skip ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Isla, are you okay to jump in now?
That's fine. Yeah, I can jump into the hot seat. That's all right.
Thank you very much. I'll pass over to you.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. So I'm Kyla Orr from Cup Crofters, which is we started out as principally a seaweed farming business up on the Isle of Skye, northwest Scotland, and have moved into biostimulant development and manufacture. So you can jump to the next slide. Well, so you can see a photograph there of a big brown seaweed called kelp that's grown on lines, and we basically sustainably manufacture farm our kelp on these long lines at sea in an environmentally friendly way, and produce biostimulants using very sort of low energy and sustainable processes. We're fairly new to the biostimulant industry, as in we started product development 2 or 3 years ago, so probably the new kids on the block compared to some other companies presenting today, but have had some great results year on year. And every step of the way we've been testing our products through various labs and in combination with farmers, and work very closely with Scottish Agronomy up in Scotland, and recently also with Terrafarmer on this project. And our main focus is really to produce a new generation of Scottish-made seaweed biostimulants that can help crops combat stress, and therefore improve yields in quite variable and harsh climates. Seaweed in itself has to grow in an incredibly harsh environment. It spends large parts of its day being completely dry and the rest of the day being completely wet. So it's got quite interesting chemistry in terms of being able to tolerate environmental extremes, again, in terms of light, a lot of very harsh light, and then being submerged 6 meters under, having to continue photosynthesizing in the dark. So you can jump onto the next slide. And these are just a couple of photos of us at sea to explain how we produce and grow our kelp. It's there was a slide before, I suppose it's more of a catchphrase that said liquid resilience from our farm to your farm. The main thing that we're finding with our kelp extracts is they tend to improve plants' resilience to stress. And our biomass is sourced from kelp farms, and that we grow it through a very tight season. It's got a 6-month growing period. It grows incredibly rapidly in that period. The biomass will double in 2 weeks in the spring, and so you've got things like plant growth hormones that are naturally occurring in the seaweed. You've got very large amounts of sugars that are naturally in the seaweed that the seaweed needs to grow itself, that you'll then be transferring to your crop when you spray it onto your crop. And it's quite different to existing biostimulants made from seaweed in that it's all grown in an aquaculture setting rather than harvesting it from the wild. So we've got this constrained season that we harvest, which means that chemistry is very regular in our product, as opposed to if you're getting a product from the wild at different times of year, the chemistry in the seaweed will change. So you can move to the next slide. I've said that one already, so you can go on from that. And seaweed biostimulants they're old, but they're also new. in that they have been used for generations on various crops. They went out of fashion for a while, but there's been a renewed interest in them for two reasons. It's a sustainable agriculture and move towards regen and trying to find ways to supplement your crop while removing some chemicals. And it's been found that by applying a seaweed biostimulant, you can build the root structure in the plants, and this can improve nutrient use efficiency, so that they can better tolerate various stresses and extreme conditions like dry spells and floods, temperature fluctuations, and reduce nutrients. So I suppose the important thing to point out, which you probably all know in the audience, is that there's virtually no nitrogen in a seaweed biostimulant, and it doesn't add nitrogen to your soils or to your crops. It basically influences the plant's nutritional processes so they can make better use of what's there, and also add a few new compounds to the plant and to the soil that can help them tolerate stress. So next slide. In terms of the product benefits, I probably should have made it clear at the beginning. So it's a liquid extract that we make, and it's made through a cold processing method. The seaweed gets pressed under high pressure, and you get this sort of seaweed juice that comes out of the press, and then that gets applied as a foliar spray. And from the trials and studies that we've done, the responses we've seen are better root growth, increased leaf greenness, so potentially more photosynthesis. It seems to delay senescence in some crops. So barley, for example, had a longer ripening period, which led to greater yields. It's boosted crop resilience in certain instances with reduced water, and it's also really easy for farmers to apply. So you mix it directly in with your tank and spray it. And like I said, it's made of responsibly grown seaweed, and it's chemical free and is suitable for regen farming practices. The next slide. Yeah, this is all very wordy. I realise I probably should have spent more time making nice pictograms, but hopefully the picture on the top right explains it all. I think one of the key benefits of our product is osmo protection, and I've already touched on this. And what is osmo protection? It's basically improving the productivity of plants under salinity and water stress. And like I said, seaweed grows in an incredibly stressful environment where it's dry and then wet and then dry and then wet several times a day. And osmotic stress is one of the main challenges that farmers are facing globally, and we've seen it in the UK this year being dry, last year being an absolute deluge. These two extremes just back to back. And to counteract this osmotic stress in plants, it can be balanced out by basically adding solutes onto the plant and into the soil, and that can help them regulate how much water they're taking up and they're not taking up. And one of the main components in our seaweed is something called mannitol, and it's a carbohydrate sugar, and I'm not sure if it's sorry, I'll get that question in a bit. So mannitol is a sugar that helps with water regulation in plants, and it's one of the main sugars that's found in our seaweed extract. There are some amino acids, but I would say it's not their main function compared to something like Cetus oil, which is very heavy on amino acids. I think the main focus would be on things like the seaweed sugars and the mannitols.
So yeah, just a question come through, Carla, from Ian. Can the seaweed product be used as a seed treatment or only as a foliar?
At the moment, only a foliar. I don't think it's sticky enough to use as a seed treatment. I mean, like I said, because we're in product, we're still developing the product to some extent. We have been asked about seed treatment, and it's definitely something worth trying, but we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, just to say on that, we've had a little bit of experience of mixing a seaweed type product with a bit of fulvic acid as a bit of a seed treatment, because the seaweed's quite good at breaking the dormancy of the seed to basically start that germination process before it hits the ground. So you're sort of kick-starting the seed, which has worked really well in certain situations. So in other contexts, it has worked. So I'm sure it will apply to your product as well, because that's a good idea for the seaweed to break that dormancy.
Mm-hmm. So there's one question there about the stability. The shelf life is between 2 to 3 years from the date of manufacture, as far as we know. Great. Right, you can go on to the next slide. And this slide, I think it's the final one. I know it might be one or two more. It's just a brief summary of some of the trial data we've got. Didn't have time to put plots together for everything, but the most recent studies this year have been Terrafarmer in Wales on the grass and forage trials. The prelim results have shown that it increased the sugar content of the grass and also increased the microbial biomass in the soils. The results were quite variable from farm to farm, that's what I would say, but I don't know if that's inherent in every product. We found that there were 4 farms. Of the 3 farms, the increase in yield of fresh weight of grass ranged from 5 to 26%, and then one farm showed no response. So you know, that it might just be the condition of the soil on that particular farm, or different products are being applied. But that's the range that we saw there. In Scotland, we've focused very heavily on testing on spring barley with Scottish agronomy, and yield increases this year were between 6 to 12%, last year between 3 to 8.5%, and the year before, 2023, on farmer trials, the farmer found about 10% increase in his spring barley and a 13% increase in his winter barley, and this is on top of business as usual. So this is not trials with reduced nitrogen input. We did also have some trials run in India, which is not really relevant in this case. It's just to show that the product does work on vegetables, and got similar yield increases on vegetables trials in India as well. So the next slide. So as already mentioned, the kelp extract is applied as a foliar spray. The application rates are between 2.5 to 5 litres per hectare, with 2 to 3 repeat applications depending on the crop type. The first application would normally be in the spring, coinciding with T0, and then again with T1. Sometimes there's a benefit of a third application, but not always. So I think it depends on the year, the dryness, the crop. And farmers and agronomists have confirmed that it's really simple to use as a foliar spray, and we haven't observed any negative effects yet, which is great. Only positive so far, or no result, which in some cases is also positive. Right, next slide. I think that might be it. That's it.
That's your lot.
Right,
thank you, Kylie. That's very good summary there. And I think raising an interesting and important point around, you know, not all products work on every farm. So I think having a go with a few products and seeing what does work and what doesn't, I think is a really key part of it as well. And you know, getting a good baseline to know where you're starting, and then retesting to have a look at what is it actually doing with, you know, in your system. So no, really good point. Thank you for that. Henry, we got your colleague.
Yeah, David's here. Yeah,
David, come on. Right, let me.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Apologies for that.
No problem at all. I was going to mute you again, Henry. Sorry. There we go. Right, let me just run back through the bots. There we go. Right.
Excellent. So am I on? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you for waiting. I apologise for that. I had another meeting that slightly overran. Okay, so BioCat is a one-of-a-kind technology that uses a cocktail of phages that we have carefully selected following extensive research with the scientists at John Innes Centre that have been proven to be highly effective against bacterial communities mainly responsible for driving nitrification in the soil. To be clear, these phages already exist in this. These phage communities already exist in the soil. We are strengthening their numbers to magnify and support the effect during fertilizer applications. Phages have a singular relationship with one bacteria and are only able to bind to a specific species of that bacteria. And through the process of lysis, hijack the species' DNA and enhance their own numbers. They remain dormant until they find a host. BioCat is gathered from nature using a process similar to brewing your morning tea, and our phages are encouraged to multiply. Once in the soil, the phages in bacteria have been shown to control the levels of bacteria responsible for the change of ammonia to nitrate, the chief driver of nitrification rates, and therefore having the potential to disrupt nitrous oxide release. So you can see on this first slide here a picture of the phage. If you'd like to go to the second slide, please. So this is a slide of some trials we did when we first started at John Innes in 2023 that show the different bacterial communities in the soil. And if you can see in the 2023 slide, clearly the green is the untreated, and you can see that we tried 4 and 8 litres per hectare, and you can see how the communities have moved across, the change in the communities between the untreated and our treated crops. And at this point we were working out what rate to use it at and how to apply it, and we found that 8 litres per hectare had a greater effect, but was clearly harder for a farmer to use. So we went away and we worked out how to double concentrate the product. So it came back to 4 litres per hectare, which could be applied through a crop sprayer in a tank mix with any of your normal products. As we go across to 2024, you can see a slightly more complicated diagram. This shows that we've already had an effect in 2023. So by 2024, we expect those communities to have had an effect, and we are enhancing the effect. So we're bringing everything more closely together and confirming what we've done and keeping things balanced. If you'd like to move on to the next slide. So this slide shows this is a result of the soil samples we took in 2023 on the left, which show an effect. We were looking to see at which point we applied it and how we applied it and how much effect we were having. We were having an effect in the right hand side and the last two, but less of an effect in the first two trials. So we were looking at the results there to see what had happened and why. And what seemed to become clear is that once the product was in the soil, it was affecting the bacterial communities. The longer it was in, the more effect it was having. So if we look at the 2024 trials, the effect is much more pronounced, much greater. In all 4 varieties, we're having a clear effect, as opposed to the control at 0. The effect we're having on the reduction in nitrifying bacteria is extremely pronounced, which was what we were hoping to see and what we'd aim towards achieving. If you could pass on to the next slide, please. So this slide, then once we checked the soil and worked our way through, we needed to see what was happening to the crop, the yields, etc., the grain, and we in the first year we took grain samples and we could see an increase in protein levels driven by the nitrogen. So we knew at that point that by slowing down the nitrification rate, the transfer of the ammonia into nitrate, we were giving the plant longer to use the nitrogen we were feeding it, which meant that it was able to use more of what was available rather than that being lost to the environment through leaching or volatilization. So then if we look across to 2024 is very interesting because in 2024 we used an isotope of nitrogen, N15, to treat the plants so that we could see at that point the nitrogen by using N15 isotope that is not readily available. For the N14 is readily available in the soil and all around us. N15 is not there. So by treating with the N15, we could tell categorically that the nitrogen we put on the plant was what was reaching the seed. And in conjunction with the soil results, we found the same result, that the year on the effect was even more pronounced. Clear difference between the untreated nitrogen levels in the seed, protein levels in the seed, and the treated. If you'd like to move on to the next slide, please. Now, this is quite an interesting slide. It's eye-catching. This is a slide showing the nitrogen, so the bacterial communities in the soil that are nitrifying, particularly the nitrospiras, nitrosomonas, etc. And it's showing from the left-hand side traveling through the effect of our product. The bacteria we were particularly looking for was the TA21, which is a branch of Nitrospira that are extremely active in our soils in nitrifying, and it's satisfying to see that those are the communities particularly that are being reduced in the 4 and the 8, as opposed to how many are in the untreated trials. So that there at that point we're clearly identifying the types of bacteria that we are having an effect on and proving their results. If you pass to the next slide, please. Okay, I think this one's for Henry now. Sorry, could you unmute Henry for me?
There you go. Yeah, this was just a bit of a snapshot, really, of the trials that we did over the last 3 years. Obviously, as David mentioned, we had funding from Innovate UK for trials being done at John Innes Centre at the farm up there, which is very useful. But we also worked with a team of agronomists that got us some trials around the country as well. So obviously a variety of different soil types, both spring and autumn crops, combination of root crops and things like that. So yeah, I mean the big ones are, maize, we got a 35% increase in yield, spring oats 25%, spring barley 28%, winter wheat 25%, and that was all with a reduction of fertilizer. Main thing as well, no negative results. I know that this year hasn't been great for crops, but we still had a positive impact in some of the trials we did. There's no problem with any tank mixes, yeah, so it's 100% organic product. We've got Soil Association and OF&G approval, and it's it's an exciting product to be working with.
Fantastic. Thank you, chaps. You again there, Henry. There we go. Yeah, thank you very much. That was a good overview. Any questions for the BioCat chaps? Quite a new, novel technology and phage that, so quite an exciting product to keep our eyes on. So no, really good. Thank you. Right, let me skip ahead and then I'll hand over to Romney. Okay. Romney, over to you.
Thank you, Will. So I'll try and give you a very brief overview of how bacterial and fungal microbes, and specifically the ones that we use, enhance soil and plant health, as well as crop yields. Next, please. Next slide. The Silgan product is a foliar spray which has full soil association and OF&G status and is applied at 200 grams per hectare in between about 100 and 250 litres of water, costing about £14 per hectare per application, and contains a very carefully balanced mix of 19 different beneficial bacteria and fungi that are designed to protect crops, to enhance nutrition, to stimulate growth, and to improve soil health. Next slide, please. One of the roles of these bacteria and fungi is in plant protection and biocontrol. And the different genera of bacteria and fungi tend to play different roles. And the bacilli, for instance, produce a lot of natural antibiotics and lipopeptides and enzymes that suppress fungal and bacterial diseases. Some types of bacteria of the bacilli also release insect-killing proteins. The pseudomonads compete with pathogens for iron using powerful siderophores. I should say that that bacilli also produce siderophores, but pseudomonads have a much more powerful arsenal, if you like, and produce antibiotics and enzymes. The Bavarias are insect-targeting fungi, which work very well with, along with the bacilli that release insect-killing proteins. And they also live harmlessly inside plants, improving pest tolerance. The trichoderma a classic biocontrol fungi I think most people have heard of, that attack harmful fungi and break down their cell walls and can prime plant defenses. Next slide, please. These microbes play quite an important role in nutrient supply and growth promotion. And probably the headliners are the Aspergillus, Aspergillus and Azotobacters, that are free-living nitrogen fixers that boost nitrogen supply to non-legumes and release growth hormones for stronger roots. They can produce, actually, depending on the amount of sun and the year, they can produce high levels of nitrogen. Rhizobia are symbiotic nitrogen fixers for legumes, and I think most people have heard of Rhizobia too, improving plant nitrate nutrition and root nodulation. The bacilli and pseudomonads solubilize phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, actually a real range of minerals, and also release iron-governing siderophores and produce auxins, that is to say hormones for growth of both root and of stem, and other stimulants. The arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi extend the plant root system to dramatically increase uptake of phosphates, micronutrients and water. For instance, 1 cubic centimetre of soil can contain as much as 100 meters of fungal rhizomes, which are far more efficient at extracting water and nutrients than plant roots. And this is all carried out by these microbes in exchange for carbon, as we've heard actually a little earlier, supplied by the plants, generally in the form of sugars. Next slide, please. Decomposition and creating healthy soil is a further task undertaken microbially. The Pleurotus and Phanerochaete fungi are powerful decomposers of straw and wood and lignin, speeding composting and releasing nutrients. The Trichoderma produce powerful enzymes that improve organic matter turnover and suppress harmful fungi. The bacilli and lactoplanted bacilli contribute to organic matter turnover and pollutants degradation. All of this leading to well-composted soils, supporting even higher microbial populations. Next slide, please. Stress tolerance, and the stresses here, we're talking about a drought, salinity, heat, flooding and cold, is a complex role undertaken by these soil microbes, and the Azospirilla and bacilli and pseudomonads and rhizobia all improve water and nutrient uptake and strengthen the plant's own stress response systems. The AMFs, the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, increase drought and salt tolerance, and through hyphae and glomalin, enhance soil aggregation, helping soils to hold water and resist erosion. Glomalin is a glycoprotein produced by these AMFs, these arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, which helps to bind soil particles together and improves soil structure significantly and the stability of the soil, and plays an important role in carbon sequestration and soil fertility. Next slide, please. Microbes are core to root development and early establishment, and Azospirilla, bacilli and pseudomonads all produce auxins and other plant hormones that promote root branching, anchorage and nutrient exploration. The Trichoderma are very good at protecting seed, as are the pseudomonads actually, and emerging roots from pathogens, improving germination vigor. And the AMFs act as a living extension of the root system, greatly increasing root surface area. Next slide, please. So plant defense, soil structure and vitamin production is another vital microbial role, and the AMFs play quite an important role here. Their hyphae and glomalin bind soil particles into stable aggregates. They improve soil structure and act as a biological barrier to many root pathogens. They also help prime plant defenses and this is known as induced systemic resistance, or ISR. The pseudomonads and the bacilli produce B group vitamins, and particularly the pseudomonads, in fact. That's B1, B2, B6, and B12 generally. And this is vital to plant defense systems, along with plant hormones like indole acetic acid, which further enhance plant defenses, stress tolerance, and root colonization. So they play a very strong role in natural pest and disease control. Next slide, please. So take-home message, really. This spray combines proven genera and species of beneficial microbes, bacteria, fungi, and arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, all in one product. It protects against pests and diseases and enhances nutrient availability, stimulates strong roots and seedlings, and accelerates residue breakdown, improves tolerance to stresses. By using natural processes, it can reduce fertilizer and pesticide needs, improve soil structure, and support healthier, more resilient crops. Dry matter yields with our older slurry additive product, also when used as a foliar spray, are on average up by 30%. Next. That's it. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you, Romney. Any questions for Romney? Well, leaves for me to say, well, thank you for all the presenters. Really appreciate your time and effort this evening, and for sticking to the tricky brief of a 10-minute overview presentation. You've all done a really good job, and sort of highlighted the key factors of your product. So I guess from my perspective, I'll just run through each product and kind of where I see them on farm. So the TerraFed product we started off with, really good all-rounder. It's performed well across all the parameters of the trial. And what we find it works well is sort of post-cultivation to help to feed that microbiology, to prevent the biology from eating the organic matter, to help maintain organic matter levels and feed the biology to then restructure the soil. Seed to soil, likewise, a good all-rounder with the amino acids and proteins. I think it's quite useful in sort of pest management, so aphid, flea beetle, again, maybe because of the smell, maybe because of the early hit of nutrition, and likewise in foliar nutritional applications, particularly urea applications. Soil point, really good in terms of the humates helping with soil structure. So on sort of sandier soils, low cation exchange capacity soils that need that sponge of humates and cation exchange, really helpful to build that, to hold nutrients and water. So a good product for that. BioCat, likewise, a really good product where nitrous oxide emissions might be an issue. So, dairy farms or farms with, leaching problems, and we want to hold more of that nitrogen within the soil. A really useful product there. Kelp crofters, good all-rounder again, really good in stress management. So this year with the dry weather, we've found it being pretty useful to help those crops just hang on for that extra day or two to sort of hit the moisture or get that bit of rain, and also help to improve the quality parameters of grass forage, but also cereal production in terms of crude protein levels. And Silgan, likewise, in terms of helping to build that root biomass. So we've seen quite a good level of the arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi that Romney was talking about, which helps, in terms of a bigger root surface area to access those pockets of nutrition, phosphate, potash, that are really can be immobile. So that's roughly where I sort of see each product on farm. So I guess to sort of take home messages now, get the fundamentals of your soil right first. These products are fantastic, but you really need, a good foundation of physics and chemistry before you look at that biology piece. So get that right first. I think testing them on your own farm. So what works on your farm might not necessarily work on a neighbour's or vice versa. And a key part of that is baselining. So get a baseline, try a product. If that's half a field, a bit of a field, and then retest to see what's going on, see the benefits, and actually put some numbers to it. Because visually, sometimes the differences aren't you can't pick up through the eye. So no, that's kind of what I wanted to leave with this evening. And we've got a few on-farm events in November in Wales. So we'll share the details of that as soon as we've got the venues booked out, and we'll also look to run some more online webinars when we've got the full results through to run through the detailed results. But this was a really good opportunity for the producers to be able to explain their product, what they do, and why we've decided to look at their products. So we're a little bit ahead of time, which is nice. So I'll finish off and open it up to any questions. Darren.
Yeah, can I thank everyone as well? You know, it's been a fascinating trial for us to do, and I perhaps wish we'd been able to hear about your products before we started using them. But it was great to hear what they actually do for us, which I wasn't perhaps aware of all through the trial. You know, there were two particular ones that worked extremely well for us in our situation, which was a new reseed of pure red clover. And am I allowed to mention them, Will, without getting in trouble? But
no,
yeah,
please.
The Terrafed and the Soil Point really seemed to, you know, take us forward, and we were able to see visual differences in the crop yields. But the interesting thing for me is when we combined all the products to make up a cocktail to add to the experiment just for fun, we actually saw a negative response, and almost actually to the stage where Will was emptying the tank at the end of each trial up the side of the field, we actually saw the clover die, and it burnt it off. So I wonder, would anyone of you like to throw your clever brains into explaining perhaps why we were seeing a negative effect of joining products together, and is there a case where we can perhaps use some products in line with others, and you know which to steer clear from?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Just to clarify, so one of the plots we basically mixed all of the products together, so it was a 6-way mix, which it was again a bit of fun. We had them all together, so we thought, why not? But no, if anybody wants to share their wisdom, we've had a few ideas thrown out there, but I'm all ears. But no, I'll try and find it and send it across. We've got a satellite image of the field, and you can see the bit where we washed out on the tank, because that will have had a couple of extra applications. Luckily, only a small strip, Darren, so that's good. But still, a good excess from the trial that we didn't expect. So yeah, Romney.
Last year, we certainly found that the mixture of the foliar spray with the QLF Terrafed and the seed to soil worked as a very good combination. As you say, it so much depends on what you're offering, and I think the thing that microbes really need is a reasonable feeding in order to multiply up. And up until now, our main product has been a slurry additive, so that we're using the slurry as the feed, if you like, and it's multiplying everything up, and then we put the enriched slurry onto the grassland or wherever, and there we're getting really significant increases in yield, up to about 65% increase in dry matter. But actually, on average, over all the 15 different trials there, we've had just about exactly 30% increase.
Great, thank you, Romney. Really interesting. Peter and Jacob, nice to see you. What's your question?
Just wondering, Will, some of these products we were told are good to put on when you're drilling. Are they okay just being sprayed on the surface of the field, or will they better performance if it actually goes down the spout or down with the drill then into the seed?
Yeah, good question. I mean, with any fertilizer, if it's liquid or granular, if you band it down sort of the coulter, it improves the efficiency because it's a lot more concentrated. So the benefit of that generally is a lower application rate. It's still doing the same thing, but it means cost-wise, generally you're a lot more cost-effective because higher concentration means lower application rate, and you're sort of putting it around the seed where it's going to really deliver that benefit. So obviously, but not everyone has the kit, for putting banded fertilizer behind the drill. So I'd say if you have the option to do that, brilliant. I'd say band it because that helps with the concentration, so you can help to reduce the application rate. But equally, a broad spectrum, standard sprayer or tow and fert machine, whatever you've got on farm, equally works really well because then you're sort of spreading the goodies within the product, across the whole field itself. So I think it depends on your kit and what you've got. The benefit, obviously, of banding is lower cost, lower application rate, but there's no harm in applying it across the whole field. If any of the other guys want to jump in, feel free.
Can I ask another question as well, added to that? Sure. I'm hoping to make up something of a low-cost machine to be able to do it, but does anybody have any low-cost ways of applying with the seed drill?
Good question. One for the farmers in the room, the more practical folk.
I'll just jump in quickly. We've done some trials with the Soil Point product on some arable as well, where they're actually mixing the powder version with the seeds just in the hopper, and then allowing that to kind of coat the seeds and go down, and then it's also being deposited. It's going through, going down, and being deposited in the seed bed as well. So that is just a case of chucking the powder in the hopper with that. So there are definitely some ways of just using it with a drill. If other products can be done in the same way, I don't know.
Romney. Hope you're just on mute.
I can see that Damien Buckley's here, and he has, I know, some experience in modifying drills. I don't know if he's able to speak.
Hi everybody. Hi, I'm in New Zealand. Well, no, I've used different trials across the UK and some trials here. We've tended to just use the drills that the farmers have had. I've seen them placing liquid applicators onto the back of your existing Horsch type drills for placing into seed slots. I've seen those on the same type of work within the US as well, with soya crops and corn crops. But I can't really talk about too much more than that, unfortunately.
No worries. Thank you very much. And Ian's put a good point in the chat there. Base UK is a fantastic networking, resource sharing organisation where very, very practical tips. So I think, it's a bit farm specific depending on what kit you've got on farm, but both work really well. And I say any product with a bit of a urea content in it is a really good one to have at planting, because the urea helps to drive root growth as opposed to the top growth. So if you can choose one, I'd say any product with a bit of urea in it, as well as the amino acids for the building blocks and trace elements, is always going to be a nice mix. You're sort of covering all bases there.
Okay, thanks.
Pleasure. Any more? We've got five minutes left, or we can finish your meeting 5 minutes early, which is quite rare, so that'll be quite nice.
Can I just ask, are any products affected by you putting them through a normal chemical sprayer, where you're putting chemicals in one day and then into biological products the next?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Darren. I mean, in conventional agriculture, actually Roundup is a very good tank cleaner, because that's kind of what it was meant to do. And obviously you've got residuals there. So you know, a good tank clean and sort of triple flush through, good sprayer hygiene will always help. And obviously then potentially if you're worried about that, obviously flush a bit of clean water through and potentially just up the water rates in the mix slightly would be my take on that. I don't know anyone else who's got any opinion. Damien?
Yes, I'd agree with you directly. We've used contracting sprayers with their commercial spray equipment, and we've just made sure that with Romney's product that they've cleaned those tanks out pretty thoroughly prior. We've also got quite a lot of experience of tank mixing some of the different products here, as well as in the UK, with adding those to Romney's biologicals. So yeah, clean the tanks through properly, and we've used the same equipment without issue.
Great, thank you. Because I think a bit of a misunderstanding is a lot of what's perceived as a tank cleaner, like an all clear or something similar, is actually just a neutralizer. It neutralizes things like sulfonylureas and other actives. It's not a tank cleaner, but there are other products out there that do a bit of both, but are more true tank cleaners. But as I say, you know, Roundup is actually in itself a reasonably good tank cleaner, but then you need to sort of wash out after that. You know, and again, you know, a tank of a trace element mix, a bit of manganese, something like that helps again just to flush through the lines, flush the filters, and make sure you've got no residuals there. So, but no, it's a good question. So just good sprayer hygiene, good wash out, triple rinse, and you should be okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Can't see any hands up or any questions, so I think we'll finish off 2 minutes early, which is nice. Let you go and get your tea unless you've already had it. But no, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you spending the evening with us, and hopefully you found that of use. We'll circulate any future events either on farm or online to all of you, and we'd love you to join again to hear another round of detail and trials results. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks
Yes.
all.
No
Bye.
problem.
Bye. Thank you.
I'll hang around for a minute or two just in case anyone wants a final question.